It's not live.
Hello and welcome to the Live Life Golden Show. This is episode 49, Love, Marriage, and Partnership, Creating Success with Someone Else. I am so excited today because I have my favorite Valentine, my only Valentine for life, Mr. Michael Duffy is with me. Hello, Michael.
Well, hello.
Perfect. Now you're blurry again. Hopefully that's
You're
not going
blurry
to
too.
happen.
You're blurry too. Don't worry about it. Just
All
go with
right.
it.
Well, hopefully we're going to be clear in what we say. So I wanted to bring my wonderful husband on today because it is our 29th wedding anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Really? Okay.
And
Happy anniversary.
we've actually been together for how many years?
36 or so.
Yeah, 36 years. So, just a little backstory on us. I met Michael when I was 12 years old. He was my best friend's brother. And I just remember meeting him and not being able to speak. I was completely, just had nothing to say. I can't even explain the feeling, but it was definitely, if anyone believes in love at first sight, it definitely was love at first sight. And it took him a couple of years to come along with me.
Still
It took
coming
some
along.
convincing. We
Mm-hmm.
became really, really good friends first. We became very close friends. And then right before I got into high school, he finally asked me to be his girlfriend. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
I don't know. This story changes every time you tell it, but
It
the way
does
I remember
not.
it,
All right, well then
I
tell
know,
it,
but
then tell it according to you.
it's fine. We'll go with your version. I don't know what else is there to say. You know, I asked you to be my girlfriend. We dated for a while, got married, had kids. Now we have a grandbaby. We've been ups, we've had our ups, we've had our downs. We've kind of been through a lot together, and we're still standing. So, I mean, that's the short version of the story.
Yeah, that was a very short version. So I'm going to dive into a couple of things
Ah,
and I would love you to share.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
you did
say
not make
earlier
that
that
sound good.
you were saying before how you were you had, what was the words you used when you were speechless, you couldn't talk.
Yeah.
Something that you've made up for that. I just wanted everybody to know that that's not a problem anymore. So,
Okay. Okay.
all
Here we
right.
go.
I'm
Here we
just here to
go.
give
And
you a hard. I'm
here
just
it
here to
is,
give you a hard
folks.
time. Yeah. So you should have seen before we started recording. I'm telling you, that was better than anything we could say. So, what do you want to talk about, babe?
Well, I've thought, I've written some notes down and I've thought
Mhm.
about kind of the trajectory of our journey and the things that we've worked on because, the reality of the situation is when you marry someone and you make a decision that you're going to get married and this is going to be forever. And I don't know that people do this as much as they used to because, we've got this over 50% divorce rate. So people get married. I'm sure there's an intention there to stay together. But the truth of staying together is there's diligence and focus and, just a perseverance that goes beyond any wound or trauma or fight or anything that you're struggling to get through in your life. We made a decision a long, long time ago. I remember we were living in this teeny tiny apartment and I was working at a bar, which I ended up quitting because it was just ruining our marriage. And we got into this huge fight one night and we said failure is not an option. Like we made the decision that we would never end our marriage. And because of that, we never threw that D word out like ever since then. And we were probably, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years married at that point. And that decision, I feel like, was a huge part of us always reaching towards each other and not looking away from each other. No matter what was going on, we always came back together and got stronger through, all of the trials of life because life isn't easy. I think a lot of people can look at our situation and say they've got it good and they've got it easy and look at them, they're so lucky. But if they saw what we've walked through together, it takes work. It takes absolute work. Would you
Yeah, it takes
agree?
work, and like you said, like we decided failure's not an option, and it's easy to say that. Um, but I had been through a divorced parent situation when I was younger, and it was ugly. Even as a kid, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, it could have been a lot worse. But I just remember thinking, like, I don't want that to ever happen to me. Um, and I think that's one of the reasons. I mean, a couple of reasons we waited a while to get married. We were together for 7 years, but we were kids. We were teenagers, and 20 years old, and 20. How old were we when we got married? 21, 20 years old. But we had
Yeah, I
waited
was 20,
because
you were 22.
so we were young, but um, we just had I had that in my mind, like, hey, let's make sure that this is really what we want. I don't want to get married just because everybody else was doing it or because we had a baby or whatever. It's like,
Maybe.
let's just make sure. Let's just make sure that this is going to work because I didn't want to get divorced. I just knew early on that's not what I wanted. I mean, how do you really know when you're 17 or 18 years old, what you really want? But I knew I didn't want that. So we had waited and then finally decided to do it. It was a very abrupt decision, actually. I mean, we were already
It
living
was.
together, had a child, and the whole thing. We were kind of doing the married thing, but we weren't married. I think we were kind of like young hippies, in a way where we're like anti-establishment and marriage is just a piece of paper and all that bullshit. So we were like, nah, we're not going to do it, whatever. And then we were getting ready to fill out some life insurance policy because what we had a kid and we were like, okay, now we got to think about that. So we did this whole term life insurance thing, and we had different last names, and it was like so annoying. And then we were just like, you know what? Let's just freaking get married so we can put it. It was kind of, I think that's what I remember was like, we just wanted to put the same name down, and we were tired of filling
Well,
things out in different.
yeah, I felt so much shame. It was like, here I was, I had a baby, I wasn't married. My grandmother was like, he's not going to pay for the cow if the milk is free. Like, I had those stories going on from my Catholic family that we should be married. And I just felt shame, and I was really tired of feeling that shame. And I wanted your last name since I was like 14 years old. I used to write it on my books from school. So it was a long time coming for me. I don't think I ever decided I didn't want to marry you. I was just waiting for you to to ask.
So yeah, so eventually we did it because of that, and then but it had been 7 years. It wasn't like a new thing. That's why for me, it's like I see young couples that get married after knowing each other for a short amount of time, and I'm like, okay, I hope I hope the best
Yeah,
for you. But I know how it can be difficult and challenging, and you have to really know someone to make the commitment to want to spend the rest of your life with them. I mean, it could be a long time.
totally. Yeah. And I mean, we
Um,
didn't even have our shit together at that point. There was a lot
No, we
that
were
we had
we
to
were
work
counting
through.
change. We were counting change that we had in a change jar to like get
Get
stuff that we
married.
needed for this wedding ceremony, which was pretty. It turned out great. People pitched in and all that, and but we were counting our change for things like what a wedding dress and
My wedding dress I paid
license.
for in quarters. I found it in an antique store window and it fit me perfectly and it was $75 and I literally paid for it with my rolls of quarters.
Right. So
And it was perfect.
we were like, yeah, we didn't have money, but I'm sure there's lots of songs out there to talk about not having money and um,
Yeah.
still being in love and making it work out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be difficult. So you think when you're young and getting married, everything's going to be perfect all the time, and then you have disagreements, especially when you have kids and there's financial challenges and that sort of thing. So that's why having that failure is not an option commitment, like a real solid commitment, was really important.
Yeah, not throwing that divorce word out there all the time and feeling like that you don't have a strong foundation. I think we really felt like our foundation was really strong. So it opened us up to work on our stuff together. And it wasn't always perfect. I remember so many times writing you a letter and just telling you what was wrong with you. And it was like, nothing ever came of that. It was like, this is what's wrong with you. And I think that happens a lot in relationships where we're constantly focused on what's wrong with the other person and what we want to change about them. And when we're doing that, we're tuning into a frequency of everything that's wrong about them. And we can't connect on a level where everything feels good. So we've learned over the years, especially once we connected with law of attraction and universal law, of starting to focus on what we love about one another. And for a long, long time, I mean, this is for years and years and years, we have literally tried to make each other's life easier. Like we have always been there in partnership as a team. So if you're in a marriage or a relationship or a partnership and you're on separate ends and you're tit for tat. I saw a lot of people do this in marriage, like especially if the husband traveled, the husband would come home and the wife would be like, I'm done. Like, it's your turn. And here he's been working, he's been working out in the field doing what he does. And then, or like, they come home and you're like, here's the kids. I'm leaving. I've had enough. And it's like we kind of tit for tat each other and try to one up each other of how hard our lives are. And there's no teamwork in that, and there's no ability to come together and really work on things together if you're feeling like you owe me all the time. I think we've done really well with that, but it took some practice for sure.
Of course, it takes work, it takes practice. But if you're really committed to something, and whatever it is in your life, you'll do the work.
Yeah, and figure it out. It's just coming together instead of like, I think a lot of people kind of look outside of themselves for joy or look outside of their marriage for attention. I think that happens a lot when life is really hard and you've got a family and you're giving the kids all the attention, then it's really easy to look outside of yourself for attention from other people, whatever. And then that becomes something that breaks up the marriage. We just always came back together. I'm not sure why that was. We just, because of that decision and intention we made. We also have 4 daughters. So we had the first baby. She was 6 months old when we got married. And then I got pregnant right after we got married and had the second baby 16 months from the first baby. So we had these little Irish twins, these girls. We were babies ourselves. And we made a decision really early on that I would stop working because working in a bar, working in a restaurant was definitely deteriorating our relationship. Like it wasn't good for us. And we just decided that that we would make it work, that we would make it happen. And I think we've done that several times in our life where we were facing financial battles or struggles and we just went, we're going to do this. We're going to make this work. And it always worked. No matter how broke we were, or how much change we had to count, we always made it work. And eventually you built yourself up to the point of being able to, get us into a house and buy a house and then 2 more babies. Like so much goodness and so much life and so much busyness and chaos. And at the end of the day, I think we always felt like we were each other's safe space.
Yeah, for sure. And I've had several people over the years just say things to me like, "How did you do it?" And you think about it, and you're
No
like,
idea.
"I don't know, they just did it." Because again,
Yeah.
going back to that initial commitment of failure is not an option. It's easy to make a commitment and say your vows and all that, but this was beyond that. This was like at our core, we were like, we just didn't want to give up. We didn't want to fail. Most people, I think, when they get married, I'm going to say most people, I hope at least, are actually in love. They really love each other. They care
Mm.
about the other person. They're attracted to the other person and all that. And then things happen. I don't know. People have short attention spans these days, so they get bored with one another, or they have kids, and the whole thing that you were talking about with the humdrum and the trading. I did this, and you didn't do this, and keeping track of things. Um, but we also came up with things along the way um, that were very helpful. Like, for example, date night. We
Yeah, I was
and,
just
and it's
thinking
it's
that.
not always like easy to schedule things when you've got four young kids, and probably during that time, maybe we didn't do it as much. We were those parents that would try date night, but we would take the kids to Chili's, and we were those people, with the crying children. And then we'd be like, why did we do that? Like, because we just wanted to get out. But then as the kids get older and you find a decent babysitter, you got to take time just to go out, even if it's just some stupid thing like you go out together, um, some cheesy place or whatever. But you're out. Maybe you go to a nice dinner. Maybe you go to a show. Maybe you just go to Arby's. I don't know, right? But just get out together, spend some time together. Adult time where you're not talking about the kids, and just kind of uh, staying connected. Because when you have
Yeah,
the family, and if you're working or if you have your own business, it's like there's so much going on. It's easy to it's easy to get further apart, and the further
yeah,
apart you are, you feel less connected, obviously. So it's harder to reconnect. So doing it, even if it's just once a month or once every 2 months, and schedule it, it helps keep that um, closeness from getting so far apart. And then I think, if people that were having challenges really stopped for a minute and thought about the other person and made a list of positive aspects and said, what do I love about this person, and why did I marry this person? Because obviously they did
mhm,
like the person, not just love the person, but they liked the person. They were attracted to the person. They wanted to get married. Like, think about that. Like, why did you do it in the first place? Like, can we get back to that? um, but it takes both people to want to play. So, but anyway, I just wanted to talk about that because date night was a pretty big deal there, especially for a while. And now we do date night, and it's great. We don't have the responsibilities of little children anymore, thank the Lord. And so it's a totally different experience now. There's more freedom in our
yeah,
life. But
mhm.
we've gone through it. Like, four kids. We didn't have a freaking nanny and all that shit. Like, you know, you did all the work, and I was working, and it was
We
like,
didn't even have helpful parents. We didn't even have family that really helped us. It was all
here and
us,
there,
you know?
you get people to help, but it was mostly paying babysitters, or you just stay home or you take them with you, and you make the best of it. And it's stressful and it's hard because kids
Yeah,
are pain in the ass a lot of times, especially
it's
little ones.
awful.
Little ones, they don't care about anybody but themselves. It's like they're just, that's just the way it is, and it's just funny. But it's challenging.
Yeah,
And when you're trying to enjoy a concert, we took our kids to an outdoor concert, and we look back on this one particular day, and it was an amazing experience. But if you think about the minutia of the day, there was a lot of challenges in that day. We're talking about the
yeah,
Newport Blues Festival in
yes,
Rhode Island.
yeah.
It was hot. It was hot. They were cranky.
They
There was
were
a lot of
5 and
people.
3. 5 and
But
3.
we were like,
Yeah.
we're going to this thing because we want to get to go to a show, and the kids are going to love it. I don't know what we were thinking. Like, 5 and 3, like they're even going to appreciate it. But we did it, and it was hard, and all the rest of it. But then now we look back at it, and we're like, oh, remember that time? And we went,
It
and
was fun.
it's a
Yeah,
cool memory.
yeah.
But there's a lot of times like that where it's just like a pain in the ass.
You
It's
make the
just really
best
hard.
of it. You gotta make the best of it. One other really smart thing we did with them is we would have them in bed by 7 o'clock, and we held tight to that until American Idol started,
American
and I
Idol.
think they were like yeah, I think they were like 9 and 10, and they were like, "Every one of the kids at school is allowed to watch this show," and it was on from like 8 to 9, and I was like, "Oh," and that's when I finally caved. But even after that, they had to go to their rooms at a certain time, and we had our time together. Every single night, we made sure that we had at least an hour of good time together because that's where you connect. And if you don't do that and you end up losing that, that's when people get to the point where they're empty nesters and they don't like each other. They don't even know each other. And they're like frightened that their kids are leaving because now they have nobody to talk to. So it's like foraging that relationship, finding things to do together that you both love. And if you have totally different interests, it's about compromise. Like, I don't really love football, but I certainly watched that football game with you yesterday. And I could have gone to the beach and I was like,
Did you?
I'm going to stay here and watch the football game because I didn't want you to watch the football game by yourself. And it's like, you can make those little compromises. Like, sometimes you'll go shopping with me. You look like somebody hit you over the head with something, but sometimes you'll go with me. And it's like, sometimes we make those little compromises for each other so that we can be together and do the things that we love. We're very fortunate that we have similar interests. Like, and our conversations are just leading edge and interesting. And we are very fortunate for that. And if you don't have that in your marriage, you have to find a way to create it, because otherwise, you're not going to have those commonalities and those common bonds that actually make you be friends. Like, I think that's the most fantastic thing about our relationship. Yes, we're making a life, we've created finances, we've, taken care of our family for a long time, but we're friends. Like, we really enjoy being together. And if you don't have that with someone, you've got to create it. And the way to create it is to take your eyes off of what's wrong and start putting your eyes on what's right, and start, getting curious and start asking, like, how do we live life to the fullest? How do we start doing things that are really going to put us in a place of joy? Because otherwise, what is the point? What is the point of life if you're not going to find some sort of joy in it? Is it just to pay bills and then die? I really don't ever want to believe that.
No. So some other things too, like we talked about, like appreciating the other person and the little things, and thinking back to what you loved and liked about them in the first place. And it reminds me of one time we were at a party somewhere out here in California. I was talking to this guy, and I think he was recently divorced. Um, and I said something like, "Oh yeah, that's my wife over there." I said something, we're just talking to people. I've been married a long time. I said, and I joke around quite a bit, and I said, "Yeah, and she still likes me." And he thought that was so profound, and it really is if you think about it, because like love
Yeah.
is love, and it's great and grand and all that, but do you really like the other person? Like,
Hmm.
would you be friends with them? Sometimes
Yeah.
we love someone out of like obligation, or oftentimes your kids will say, "Well, of course I love you. You're my dad." Okay,
Yeah.
but do you really like that person? I mean,
Maybe
that
not
was
right
just me.
now.
I'm just saying, like, it's just an example. But like, do you really like the other person? And you must like something of it. So you have to find something that you like. You might not like them in the moment, because we don't always like one another, but overall, yeah, we like each other. And then finding those little things that you like about the person, and then maybe even saying something about that little thing that you
Mhm.
like. you know I like the way, I don't know, now you're gonna make me probably think of something, but
Did
um
not. You started this.
I know, but I could tell you're gonna say, okay, what do you like about me? All right, I know. But so many things, just I love the way you, I don't know, it's stupid, I'm not gonna go there right now, but just find something,
Really?
make a list. No, let me
You're
make
gonna
a
leave
list.
us
Hold
all
on,
hanging.
I'm gonna
How
make
about,
a
I
list.
love the way you cook me dinner. I love the way you
That's what
cook
I
me
was gonna
dinner.
say. That's what I was gonna say,
See?
but I didn't want it to sound like, you make me dinner.
Bitch.
No, I was at the gym last week, and someone said, "Oh, where's Golden?" I said, "She better be making my dinner." That's what I said. I was kidding, but I, like,
Oh, I
yeah,
love
the way
it.
you make my dinner, you take such care and you put your love into it because you want it to be healthy, because you want me to be healthy. But make a list of the things you like about that person, and then just casually mention it. Say, hey, I really like the
Mhm.
way. Um, you organized a garage. I really like the way, whatever, I don't know, anything. It doesn't even have to be necessarily something personal. It could be organized a garage, for example. Like, guys take pride in a lot of things that girls might not understand. So by saying something like that, that might be like, oh, wow, she really noticed, or I really like those pants, or hey, I like that shirt. That's a big comment. I say that a lot around here.
Yeah, usually
I
when I'm
really
not
like
wearing
your
a
shirt.
bra.
No, yeah, I like that shirt. Um, doing little things for each other is also something, just little things out of nowhere,
Yeah,
in the past. And, we've done things like just send you a card, just saying
yeah,
I'm grateful, to show your appreciation, just a simple gesture. Sometimes it's hard
yeah,
to say things like that. Sometimes guys have a hard time too, especially with that sort of thing and being vulnerable. So send a card or unexpected flowers, not just for Valentine's Day or for their birthday or Mother's Day or whatever, like out of nowhere for no reason. And
yeah.
and then to be like, why did you send me flowers? I don't know, I just wanted to, and I was
With
thinking of
no
you, and I mean,
expectations. With no expectations, because I feel like a lot of times guys do stuff like that because they want to get sex, like, and then it just like kind of dampens the whole thing. It's like, just give from no expectation, do things out of no expectation, and then that creates an energy in your marriage that allows for more beautiful things to happen, because I do feel like guys do that sometimes. You do not do that, but I mean, maybe you do. I
so what are
don't
you saying? So are you saying that if I
know.
sent you flowers and you wanted to have sex with me, I should say no, thank you? No,
That
no,
is
no,
not
no,
what I'm saying.
no, no,
I'm
no.
not
That's
That's
not
not
why.
what I'm saying.
It's not why I
Just
sent the flowers. So
don't have an
just
agenda.
stay over
Yes.
there. Stay
Don't
over there.
don't have an agenda. Just don't have an agenda. And then if you get
I know.
sex, you get sex. It's like, it's a
Oh,
bonus.
right. Hold on. I got to go on 1-800
All right.
flowers real quick.
That's for this conversation is for episode 69. We have to save this
That's right.
conversation. All right.
That's right.
Moving
Bookmark it.
on, because we're being
That one's
helpful.
gonna be
We're
live. That
being
one's gonna be
helpful.
live, by the way. That
No,
episode's gonna be live, by the way.
I think you need to be next to me so I can pinch you.
Ah, yeah.
All right.
Explain.
So, now I lost my train of thought. All right.
I
So
know it
one
happens.
thing that has been hugely helpful is no longer living in the blame game. So since we know about universal law and we know about victimhood, we have gotten to the point in our marriage where instead of blaming one another for things, we kind of take a step back and ask, like, where is my stuff in this? Like, always, whenever someone is, whenever you're in a fight or you're blaming each other, first of all, you're not really going to get anywhere when you're blaming each other or yelling at each other. Not a lot gets solved in that moment. We call it not a teaching moment because emotions are too high. A lot of times people are saying things they don't really mean because they're coming from a wound. So we've done a great job of kind of stepping back and saying, where is my stuff in this? And instead of discussing stuff right away, sometimes we take a pause and we process stuff on our own and then come together and communicate. Because if you're blaming someone, you're not really looking inside at what needs to be healed. And I feel like together we have done like a lifetime of healing work. And that's why we come together whole and loved and can have a relationship where we don't take things personally and we have more compassion for one another. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. No, it's true. Like when when you get in an argument, or sometimes it's just because one of you is irritated about something, maybe not even related to your relationship, and
Right.
then the other person, I mean, you talk about law of attraction. You're sending out a vibration that you're irritated. The other person doesn't maybe know it, but they're feeling it at a subconscious level, and then
Mhm.
somehow that makes them maybe slightly irritated, and they say something that makes you more irritated, and then you say something stupid, and then now all of a sudden you're in a fight, and you're like, what the hell are we even fighting about? Like, we're not really fighting about
Right.
anything. We're just like yelling at each other, and it's stupid because you were triggered. And then past wounds come up, and it's never a good scene. So better off just walking away if you can catch yourself. It's challenging when the other person, won't shut up, but um, or you
I know
won't
you
shut
weren't
up, or
talking
you
about I know you
no,
weren't
no,
talking
but
about me.
no, like in the past, how people
Yeah,
you feel like you always got to get the last word or whatever. It's very common, and the next thing you know, somebody's sleeping on the couch or at their friend's house or at the mom's house, and you're thinking about not being together anymore. So, and then you really think about it, and you're like, what the heck were we even really fighting about? And it's
it's
probably you
true.
probably don't even know. You probably don't even know. So yeah, it's not a teaching moment. In other words, you can't stop. Like, let's say you're having a great day, and all of a sudden this other person's having a terrible day, and they start yelling at you, and you want to try to teach them something. Don't do that. Like, it's not
So,
the right time. Just like be nice, and then eventually, hopefully, if you don't respond with the same energy that they're giving you, it'll probably diffuse the situation. If you can
it does.
kind of stay centered and just kind of let it go. Don't take it personally. All those
Mhm.
cliches we hear about, but they actually work. So, but
They
it
do.
takes practice. It takes practice and a knowing. Like once you know it, you're still going to do it. You're still going to slip up. You're still going to make mistakes. You're still going to have arguments, but you're going to catch yourself, and then you're going to stop and say, "All right, never mind." And then you're going to go for a walk, and then it'll be. It's almost like sometimes if that happens to us, we just don't even talk about it because it's stupid, and to talk about it
Right.
any further just makes it worse. So it's not like being in denial about it, but we know that that was just about nothing. It's because,
Right.
and like for me, usually it's something's irritating me at work, and a client or somebody that works for me or whatever, something's happening, and I'm irritated about it, and I don't want to talk about that. So
Right.
you just let it go and pretend it never happened, kind of, and
And
it's not
that's when
like
the
burying.
compassion comes in because I'll think about, what you deal with in a day. And like instead of going into those old neural pathways, like thinking about, the 10 things you did before that made me mad, or start thinking about, because, your mind is very interesting the way it will take you to places and bad neighborhoods and a drama because your body kind of gets addicted to drama. You start thinking, oh, what a crappy man he is. And how he talks to me like I'm a piece of crap. And you could start going down that road. But instead, and this has been over the last couple of years, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, God, he's working really hard and there must be something on his mind. And I'm not going to take this personally. And, it's not about letting somebody treat you like shit. It's about giving people a pass when it's really not, it's not a bone to pick. You just make your decisions based on what's going to lead us to joy. It's not about being in denial, but it's kind of it's giving each other a little bit of slack in the stress of life. And the other thing that's happened in the last few years is you apologize. Like you come back to me and you say, I'm sorry. In fact, the other day when like a week ago, you were cleaning out this toilet and it was a shitty job and you're in the middle of
Yeah,
it. And we ended up like, right. And we were in the middle of like, something and you kind of snapped at me and then you came back and I didn't take it personally at all because I was like, God, he's in the worst job ever right now and look what he's doing for our family. And you came back and you apologized for snapping at me and I just said, you were in the middle of a shitty job. Like I totally understand. Where that could end up creating a fight for someone if we're not in that element of compassion and we're in this wounded state of, he's attacking me or he's treating me badly, or it's all about that story you create around it that actually has it manifest into the next moment. So I think we have gotten really good at that. It's not perfect by no means, but it's damn close. It's damn close, I
pretty
think.
good.
I mean, I feel that.
I mean, you got
Yeah,
to
I
have
feel a
contrast.
lot. Yeah.
You got to have some contrast. I was telling someone the other day that you can't always have everything perfect because that would be boring. You think it wouldn't be, but it would be boring. You have to have
Yeah.
a little bit of contrast just so you can appreciate everything else. Um, so yeah. So
And process.
what?
Yeah, you got to process.
So love. I'm looking at the title of the episode here: Love, Marriage,
Oh, yeah.
and Partnership.
Yeah, so the other
When
piece of this that I wanted to touch on was about pushing each other's buttons because we've gotten good about, first of all, if you have a big button out there for somebody to push, then that has to do with you. But you learn over the years, like what pisses your partner off. Like one thing I know that really aggravates you is when you take his stuff and you don't put it back. Like that
that's a
makes
pet
him
peeve,
really mad and upset.
the pet
Yeah.
peeve of mine. Like, just put it back. What the hell?
So I always make sure I put his stuff back because I know that. Like, why would I do that if I know it's going to upset you? So I think in relationships, it's easy to not pay attention to that stuff or care enough, but to care enough about what really kind of irks your partner or what their pet peeve is and to not do that anymore. One thing I would love for you to stop doing is chewing your gum so loud. But I know saying that is just going to make you chew your gum louder. So
It definitely will. It definitely will. And I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I don't chew
I
my
have
gum
to
loud. I
breathe.
chew my,
I literally just have to breathe. I mean, this is for people who are very sensitive to chewing. There's people, I have people on my in my tribe.
well,
I know I
right.
do.
If you
They
want to
might
talk
all be
about
Virgos.
things, you want to talk about things that irritate each other. Is that what this is? No,
No.
because
No.
because
All
when
right,
you
I'll give
eat,
you one.
it
I'll
happens
give you
when
one.
you eat. When you eat, I have to make sure there's music on. If it's silent, I have to leave the room because it's like listening to a cow chew
See?
grass.
See? These are things that can really get you. Do I really? Are
I
you
don't
just
know. I
saying
mean,
that?
yes, no, I'm serious. I don't. I don't say anything. I'm like, whatever. I mean, I'm just grateful that you're sitting next to me eating food. Just because
Exactly.
you sound
That's
like
how
a
I feel when
cow
you're
in the
snoring.
meadow chewing grass. Right.
When you snore, I'm just grateful you're breathing.
There you go.
Wow, this went down a tough road. All right, we're bringing it back. Let's bring it back.
Bring it
Okay.
back in. Bring it back in.
So, let's just talk about so we talked about the whole pushing the button thing. Oh, women. I wanted to address women in this, and I guess this could apply to men too, but I definitely think this is a woman thing. Ask for what you want. Don't assume that someone, especially of the male nature, is going to know what you need and what you want, even if you have told them in the past. If you really want something, walking through life as a martyr, hoping and wishing that somebody's going to know what you need, and also having the idea of they should know what I need. This was an issue for us a long time ago, and if
Do
you
you have an
really need
example of this
something,
in your personal life?
in regards to you, I don't know. I think that, that was my letter writing to you, which was like, when I think about doing that, I mean, I write, that's what I do, that's how I express myself. But writing to you was all about things I felt like I couldn't say to you because I felt like my throat was kind of shut down. And that's, childhood wounds or whatever. But I feel like my letter writing was always like what you need to change. So I don't really think those letters were, I mean, obviously they worked in some respect because we created a better relationship, but I also think they were in a lot of lack. So coming back to that and acknowledging that was my asking for what I needed. And it was always my lack, it was always my not feeling good about myself, not feeling validated, not feeling like you cared about me as you're building a $3 million construction business, right? So it was always that, like, you're not loving me enough, you're not telling me enough, that kind of stuff. And that all came from my own stuff, my own need to heal, my own need to love myself, and my own need to feel that I was worthy of someone to love me and not need to, build me up every day. That must have been exhausting. I can just imagine.
Well, as far as those notes, I've only read the first couple times you sent them. After that, if I saw a message from you like on Messenger and I scrolled once and it
They
kept
started
going,
being
I just
emails.
didn't even bother reading it. I'm like, I'm not reading that. I'm not even bothering
Oh
with it.
shit. Really?
So I mean, I'm
Wow.
hopeful that it helped you just to get it off your chest. but I never read them.
Are you serious?
I mean, why would I read that? I know what's coming.
Wow.
I'm like, I'm not reading
No,
this. She's just going to tell me what's
that's
wrong
bad
with me,
advice.
why I'm such a dick, why I'm such a
No,
dick, and what's wrong with me.
gentlemen, if your wife writes you a letter, please read it. That's bad advice.
No, it
That's
is not.
bad.
Not when it comes like over and over again. It's like the same thing. I'm like, I get it. I suck.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, and that's the bullshit part of that is like it and there was a long time when I wouldn't really hear what you had to say. I wouldn't hear how you were feeling. It was all about me. And I think it's easy to be that way when, you grow up in a lot of lack and a lot of, not receiving what you need to feel like a good person, to feel like a really worthy person. So again, you guys, like we've just done a lot of the healing work and we've worked through a lot of shit. A lot, a
Now,
lot, a lot.
I know that you told me earlier that someone had a question. Did we already address this question, or do you want to discuss this topic?
Well, this is, yeah, I was going to actually, so this goes along with my creating a happy life. So somebody had inboxed me on Facebook and I thought it was a great, not necessarily a question, but like an inquiry into like our little picture on Facebook today. About how we've got this lifetime of happiness and we have really intended for happiness. We've driven towards happiness. We've done everything we can to create joy in our lives. We really have had, including selling everything we own and moving across the country, which was one of the craziest things we ever did. And, following our dreams, which was hell not easy. I mean, so much struggle and contrast and learning how to just adapt to a new way of living. And I feel like we're finally here where it feels like a lot of joy and friendship. And so she said, how do you do a lifetime of happiness? I'm 11 years in and we are content. But oh my God, happiness is a personal choice, not a shared deal in my life. So what would you say to that?
Happiness is a personal choice, not a shared
Not a shared deal.
deal. I mean, I don't know this person or what the situation is, but it sounds like, she's maybe saying that her partner's not choosing to be happy. I don't know, but all you can really do is control yourself. Like you can't change the other person. You have to. I mean, we've had times. I often think of this older couple that we know that's been married for a very long time, and they had talked about at one point how they're going through life together, right? But sometimes one person's a little bit ahead of the other one, and then the other one catches up, and then the other person's ahead of the other one, and they catch up. As long as you stay moving in the same direction, hopefully over time you'll be mostly, at the same point. So you just have to kind of love them where they are. Like you might think to yourself, well, I'm happier than that person, or terrible thing sometimes is to think you're better than or more enlightened or
Awake.
whatever,
Yeah.
awake, you're more awake, whatever. Like, don't do that. Don't be judgmental. Who knows what they're going through in their mind? Maybe they're, transitioning in different areas. So just love them anyway, love them where they're at. Do your thing. Love yourself. Think about that person, like we were saying earlier, with the little things. Make a list of positive aspects, things that you do like about the person, that you love about the person. It could be the silliest little thing, but write it down, and then just make those little comments, and then work on yourself. And then by working on yourself and loving them where they are, hopefully they'll move through whatever it is. Maybe you'll even inspire them to do something or whatever, and then they'll catch up, and then maybe someday you're going to need that from that person because you're having a hard time or you're struggling with something. I mean, just because you're happy and joyful today doesn't mean it's going to last. It's like that's not the way it works. Like we have ups and we have downs. We have We have joy and we have contrast of joy. It's like it's part of the life experience. We didn't come here just to be happy all the time. It's just you wouldn't appreciate happy if you weren't sad, or you know what I mean. You wouldn't appreciate joy if you weren't in despair. So you have to have those experiences, but you don't have to stay there. So if you're in a relationship, just appreciate that person for where they're at. Just tell them you love them. Don't judge them. Don't try to
Hmm.
fix them.
Mm. Yeah. We have an answer.
And
We have a saying in our house that says, whatever the question, love is always the answer. And whatever you're going through, just apply more love. And I would say, in that situation, like just look at the story you're wrapping around your marriage, around your partner. Your belief systems create. So, whatever you believe about that person, or whatever you believe about your relationship, or whatever you've experienced up until now, is a story. It's just a story that you're telling, and it's a frequency that you're emitting. So any relationship I believe, has the ability to get better. I know friends that were on the brink of divorce, like so close to being divorced, and then they just made a solid decision to come back together and do whatever they needed to do to make it better. And now they're like in like their honeymoon phase. Like they are so in love, and it's so beautiful to watch that and to have faith in that that's possible when something looks so broken, to have, people come back together and say, I really want to work on this. Now it doesn't always happen. And if you're in a situation where you've been divorced, or I don't know why you're listening to this, but maybe you want to know, what is it to create a good, beautiful, loving relationship? If you've been divorced, or you've been in relationships that have ended, look at those relationships and ask yourself, what was in that relationship that I really loved? And what's a deal breaker for me? Because now I need to set new intentions for my new relationship, and not bring this past stuff with me, and create something really beautiful now, because now is the only thing that matters. We create from this moment right here, and everything that's happened in the past, you have the ability to let it go, and the frequency and the story and the energy you've wrapped around your relationship today is what matters. And that can change everything. I've seen many people change the way they experience each other, just by tuning into a different channel with them, giving more love, opening yourself back up again, writing positive aspects are like one of the coolest things you can do with anyone in your life you're struggling with. Just start paying attention to what you love about them. And it can be really small. I love the way they cook. I love the way they smell. I love the way they smile. When you start tuning into those things, especially with your teenagers, it is really helpful. And it really helps you to shift the energy field in your favor, so you can start creating something different. Yeah, and you don't have to have 2 willing partners. People think that. They're like, "Well, I could do it, but my mate, my partner would never do that. They're not open to that stuff." It doesn't matter. That's just a block, an excuse to stay the same. You can change. You can emit a different frequency. You can get into a different radio station with that person. You have the ability to do that, because you are the powerful creator, and your partner is reflecting everything that's going on inside of you. So when you start to change that, you start to heal your wounds, you start to awaken and expand and grow, they will come with you, unless you have a belief that they won't, unless you have a belief that they will never be like that. I watched a husband recently change into a completely different man for his wife, and it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing, and it shows me that anyone has the ability to do it if they're really interested. And staying in a loving, deep, and rich marriage is so incredible. Like the amount of depth that we're creating at this point in our relationship is so rewarding. It's so rewarding to just stick to it, and don't give up.
right. And one thing I wanted to just say was that, based on what you were just talking about, was how, and this goes for all areas of your life, but like past events, circumstances, things that happen to you in your life, whether it's in your relationships or your job or your um, financial situation, whatever it is, that doesn't define you. It doesn't define who you are. And like you said, you can change it. how many times you've heard stories of this happen? I was in despair and it would look like the end of my life. Everything was horrible, and they turned it around. It doesn't have to be so dramatic, but the same thing can happen. But it will never happen if you give up. Like, that's why going back to our original statement that failure is not an option is so important. Not just in we've used that mantra for other areas of our life. Like moving here was like a hard struggle for a while there, and it was challenging, I'll say. But it was an option to fail. We weren't going back. We were going to make it work. Like, we were going to do what we had to do and whatever it takes, and suck it up a little bit or whatever, because failure wasn't an option. When the goal is joy, especially, right? Failure is not an option. So
Mhm.
don't let a past experience of your relationship define you or any of that. So, like you were saying, to people who maybe are divorced or are in a relationship right now, do exactly what you said. Write it down what you want. I wouldn't even write down what you don't want, because then you're focusing on what you don't want, but just write down what you
Right.
want. And then remember that what you've been through. How many times do you see people, whether it's you watching this or people that who seem to attract the same type of person? And then the same thing happens to them. They get in the same kind of, basically the same relationship over and over again. It's just a different human stepping into the role.
Yep.
It's because they just have certain beliefs about relationships. So they know what they don't want, but they keep thinking about what they don't want, and then they attract what they don't want. So just focus on
Yep.
what you want, because the past doesn't define you. It's like we're reading about our bodies right now and health and our muscles and different things. And how your body just regenerates itself basically every few months or something. It's like, if your muscles can regenerate and your brain cells can regenerate and all these things, like, it's like you could start over. You could literally just start over, a new life.
Yep.
But you have to focus on what you want, not what you don't want, and then don't give up. Just
Yeah. Yeah, and it
don't
takes a
give up.
little time because there's a lot of momentum. If you have a lot of
Right.
momentum in your relationship where things haven't been good for a long time, it takes a little time to start shifting that and focusing in the direction of what you want. Of course, meditation is key. If you meditate as a couple, even better. But having a meditation practice where you can create that space where you start to be at choice and you're no longer running on a habitual, unconscious system. That's what happens a lot of times with relationships and energy exchanges. We are on an unconscious system where we are constantly thinking the same thoughts over and over again. And when we do that, we create the same thing over and over again, and it doesn't lend for our expansion and growth and success in any relationship moving forward. So get that space, create that space, and then come back to what do I want. Keep coming back to what do I want. What do I want? Even if you're in a partnership right now, it's like, what do I want? I want to feel love. I want to feel joy. Well, how do you feel love and joy? You have to feel it first. You have to create it first. You've got to do it from within in order to experience it without. And if you're constantly looking at what you don't love about your partner, you're not feeling love. You're not feeling joy. So it's just tuning that frequency, that radio station, right, to all the love songs.
That's right. Except for Adele. But I just wanted to say
Sorry if
something
you
else.
like her.
No, one last thing. Like, humor is really important. Like, we joke around a lot. We
Huge,
keep things light,
huge,
laughing. I love hearing you laugh. I love your laugh. So
constantly.
I try to do silly, stupid little things just so that I can hear your laugh. Um,
It's true.
even when it's
And I'm
stupid,
also
you still
I'm
what?
pretty lighthearted. And that's the other thing is like we're taking life too freaking seriously, the bills, the kids, the heaviness, the all of
Right.
that stuff doesn't lend to a light and joyful experience. You got to lighten up. It's not so serious. I mean, we have been through bankruptcy and house foreclosure and cars being repossessed out of our driveway, our whole lives like crumbling around us, and we just kept grabbing each other and going, we're going to get through this, we're going to find a way, failure's not an option. And then just creating, like, especially when we came to California, we would just go, and I know this isn't an option for everybody in the winter, but we would just go to the ocean and watch the sunset, because that assured us, that made us feel better. The ocean water would just make us feel calm. It would remind us why we did the crazy thing that we did. And we were able to just kind of like recalibrate. If you can recalibrate in those moments, come together, get some intimacy going, take a bath together. We'd love to do
Oh,
that.
wait.
Like, do
Sorry, we got
something.
to end this show now. Time to take a bath together.
That doesn't cost money. Spa night doesn't cost money, people. Candles, a bath, some Epsom salt. It's great. But do something that creates a little pocket of joy in your life. It doesn't have to cost money. We didn't have any money. At that point, we couldn't go out to dinner. We couldn't do date night was like going to see the sunset. You can create these little beautiful moments in your life. If you decide, have a picnic on your, if it's cold out, light the fire, have a picnic in front of the fire. We did a lot of that kind of stuff because we did what we could do, and that's what allowed our life to open up and kept our marriage really strong and continues to make it really joyful and wonderful.
Yeah, and we still do stuff like that. Just because you have money doesn't mean you still shouldn't do stuff like that. Like the other night, we sat
No, we
outside
went
by
to the sunset the other night. We went to the
we sat out
sunset
by
the
our
other
little
night, and then
fire
we
pit.
went to the grocery store.
I'm talking about when we just sat out by our fire pit and just had a nice
Yep.
dinner together. Like, you could just sit down at the kitchen table and scroll on your phone, but we're like, hey, let's sit down outside. It's a nice night. Put the lights on out there and put the fire on and grab a sweater or jacket if you need to. And, little things.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the other thing about the phones, because we see a lot of that stuff going on in restaurants, like people just sitting across from each other scrolling phones, and that makes us both crazy. Like, we don't, when we're together, for the most part, like, we'll have our coffee in the morning, we might do some stuff like that, but when we're together, like on a date, the phone is not happening unless we're taking pictures, because that's just
All right.
rude.
Well, we're
It's just
we're going
rude.
on a date tonight because I'm going to take you out to a really nice steak restaurant. So maybe we should leave our phones in the car.
I'm fine with that. I'm totally,
All
except that
right.
I need to take pictures
Oh,
because there's going to
except
be a
that I
good
what?
sun.
Because you have to
I
take
need to
pictures of
take
your food.
pictures. I love to
Um,
take my pictures
oh, okay. All
because
right.
I like to share. I like to
All
share.
right.
I don't like to make people jealous. I like to share what's possible. That's all I'm doing.
All right.
I promise.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Wrap it up.
So,
People are getting bored.
happy 29 years. So you are,
No, I
or
said the
they
people
are.
that are watching this are getting bored. They've probably already turned it off. It's too much.
Oh, you're funny. You're funny. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on the Live Life Golden Show. Thank you for joining me, Michael, on our special day. There'll be
Well,
more from
I'll
this
see you all
fella.
back here on episode 69. So,
We love you all. Peace.
bye.